Hello and welcome to Cheapskate. I'm Cameron and today we are cutting the fret slots and doing some inlays on the fretboard for the fret position markers. It ends up being a total disaster, so if you want to see me really stuff up, keep watching. Right here I'm just finding the center line on the fretboard to make sure I've got the central position, and I'll do a nice center line and then start marking in the positions. I'll just, the commentary will be throughout the video, just me talking while I'm filming for the rest of it. And I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more disasters. There's a few in this one. So I have now clamped the ruler on to the neck, and it is flush with the edge of the fretboard here, which is exactly where the nut will go. So this is from the nut, and I will now just put a little hang on point the camera here. I will now just put little pencil marks along the line to mark these spacings. I have the spacings here. Download this from StewMac. This is for 24.75 inch, so like a Gibson Les Paul standard. And you can select metric or imperial on here, and it will give you all the measurements for your scale length and all the frets there. So it shows you the distance. These are all the distances of each fret. So fret number 8 from the nut. It also gives you the distance between each fret. But I always measure from the nut, because that way you get accurate measurements in case you make a mistake. Yeah, well, it's hard to make a mistake. Okay, so my first measurement is 35.283, so 35.3. 35.3 should put me, I reckon, right there. And this is why you don't go between measure the frets. You got to measure from the nut, because 0.385. Can you really do that accurately with a ruler? The answer is no. So if you're going to have a very small error on each fret, and those errors will compound if you keep going from fret to fret, whereas you do from the nut each time, you're not compounding your errors. 68.587, so 68.6. 65, 6, 7, 68.6. Alright, so finished cutting in, well, the location for the fret slots. I hope you can see the marks. Yeah, I think you can see them there. I think I've cut them fairly square. And that should make it easier for me to saw them, because the saw will have a location to sink into. So if you're somebody who has trouble getting something square, what I find is, if you hold it down and you're not sure, deliberately tilt it off square, and it should become noticeable straight away that it's off, and then that'll give you a bit of an idea. And what you'll do is, as you work it out, you'll probably find that, you know what, your eye is really square, because you can tell even when it's off a tiny bit. You'll be able to tell, just because humans have a knack for that. So yeah, which is one of the reasons why making things square is so difficult, because if it's not, it's quite noticeable usually. Apologies for the lighting, folks, but can't do it outside today. Alright, so oh mate, this is nerve-wracking. It doesn't really, it's not much of a guide, this little line here. Yeah, okay, well that's on target. Okay, I'm not lying to you. I thought this line that I cut would be more of a guide than it is. It's really not helping much at all. I might be about to completely stuff this. amazing. As I just went then to look at what I was cutting, I went off course. Wow, I've already cut into the fretboard. I just noticed then too I didn't have the saw straight. Okay, I can see why people have a depth stop. That's about right there. I can see why people have a depth stop that is a hard depth stop, so you actually just run into it, because what I'm finding is every time I move my head to look to see where the depth stop is at, I start sawing off course. I actually originally planned to have the tape on the left hand side because I'm right-eyed, so my right eye will be over the top, and then I'm hoping while I'm cutting my right eye over the top, keeping it level, and my left eye can then have a look on the left side, because at the moment I have to move my head across to side it with my right eye, whereas this way I wouldn't have to move my head very far because my left eye would already be looking at it. If that makes sense. In case you didn't know, people are left-eyed and right-eyed, generally speaking. You'll learn that if you ever do archery. Alright, next one. Let's change the tape onto the other side now. And this is scary. Even though this isn't my final guitar. Yeah, I mean, you can feel it underneath, but it's just... you just feel when you're in position. It's not actually like going into the slot or grabbing it, it's just you can feel when you're over it. Then you've got to hope that when you pull the saw, you cut straight. Like that. I think that looks straight, actually. So learning my lesson, I'm pausing sawing when I check the height. Now if you're wondering why I tilt the saw to do the edges, it's because I have to allow for the radius of the fretboard, because the fretboard's not flat, it's curved. So obviously I have to cut lower on the sides. Okay. Looks okay, I guess. Okay, so I just have to do that another 21 times and we're there. I'll give you a closer look now that you've seen a bit. So look, it probably looks fairly square now looking down on it with the camera. Maybe I'm just panicking. You can probably see here where can you see it there, where I went a little bit off course right at the start. I actually hit the fretboard there. Hopefully the fret wire might cover that up if I'm lucky. Alright. Really disappointed with how I did. If we look on the side here, you'll see, I don't know if you can tell, but quite a few of the frets, especially down here, aren't straight. Much more noticeable down here. I've got 24 fret slots. You can see these ones here are quite angled. I don't know if you can see it from there, but yeah. This one appears to be straight and then goes off at an angle, but some of it may be an optical illusion because the ones next to them are angled. Yeah, I had one where I could tell the back half of my fret slot. I can even see still the original, can't remember which one it is now, I can still see the original cut mark that I did as a guide was still there. I could still see it. I didn't even go overlap it in one bit on one side of it. So not good. Not good for intonation and not good for looks if we look at it this way. So if this was the actual guitar, if this wasn't a test build, at this point I would have to throw it away. I'd have to throw the fretboard away at least. And since we also picked up that this side of the neck isn't completely flat, it's got a little bit of an indentation in it, I would actually have to throw the neck away for that anyway. So basically, if this wasn't a test build, I'd be looking at a total rebuild. So, but that's why I'm doing a test build. Yeah, look, I think this one's a little bit out, and this one's way out. And then this one looks way out, but it's probably actually just getting back to straight. Or maybe it's actually curving back the other way. Almost looks like a fan fret. There's the inlay. That's exactly what I wanted. So I'll do the same thing for the 5th fret and see how we go. We have managed to cut those in. I can definitely now see why, once again, it's better to do all this before you mount the neck on the guitar, before you even cut the neck into shape. It's much easier to do this when everything's square. But anyway, I used the bigger bit here, which was a quality router bit, and you can see the cuts came out quite well. When I started using this thinner router bit, the quality of the cuts isn't as good as far as the depth and everything like that goes, but it was a cheap one from a kit. So that's interesting. This 12th fret one here, you can see it's not in the middle, it's not meant to be. I'm going to do an axe head here for that 12th fret, so that'll be attached. And I was going to do an axe head come from this side and from this side for the 24th fret, but there's not enough room, so I just did a line all the way through on the 24th fret just to distinguish it a little bit. Yeah. So using my little files there, I've cleaned them up about as much as I can at the moment. Now I need to make the inlays and fit them, which is going to take a fair bit of time, I think, and hopefully we do a nice neat job. So we're going to try, well, after my complete failure with trying to carve this little axe here out of wood and having the wood just constantly snap on me because it's getting a bit small, and also just really hard to replicate a shape like that. I don't have the skill to do it. These probably would have been easy to do with wood, but because I can't do this one with wood, I'm going to try and fill it with resin. So what I've got here is some resin from when I used to do a lot of fiberglassing. This is actually a brand new one, it's full, it's 4 litres. So I thought about going and buying some, I saw some crystal clear resin stuff I was going to get, but the hardware store had the resin but didn't have any catalyst. Amazing. But I thought I'll just use my polyester resin. I don't think it dries all that clear, but I used to use it for fiberglassing. And I've got some catalyst here as well. It's a 1:67 ratio, so I won't need much catalyst. For colouring, I want it to be black. So I was just at the hardware store yesterday. I bought this big bag of they call colour oxide, which is used for colouring mortar or cement or grout in the tiles. So I got black, and that's about in concrete. It's is it a 1:15 mix or something like that? Alright, so I have sealed off, I guess you could say, the sides so that because it cuts into the side, it'll just flow off, so I have to stop it flowing off. So I've sealed it in. I put tape on the sides as well, just in case it overflows, just sort of trap it a little bit. Anyway, the middle being the high point, it shouldn't overflow in the middle. It shouldn't overflow here because it's the high point, because it's radiused already, so it should sort of flow down this way. So it may actually have to overfill here a little bit to keep this end filled, which is going to be a bit of a drama because the surface I'm on isn't flat, and I don't have a flat surface anywhere. So I'm not sure how I'm going to keep it flat while it dries. Probably about 15 grams. Plenty. Oh my God, that's a disaster. Yeah, this is going to be a total disaster. I've stuffed this up way too much. Let's see if we can get some rags or paper. Oh my God, what a stuff up. Okay, totally botched it. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this, but there's just, it's overflowing everywhere because I had way too much and I had no idea how I was going to pour it, and it's a disaster. So I've got to try and soak a lot of this up. Actually, in some ways it's good because it will actually fill it. This is too risky. If I get it on the guitar, yeah, I might have to just leave it like this, and I'll have to just sand it back. Yeah, lucky I taped it. Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to leave it like this. So I peeled off the masking tape, and this is what we have. It's 24 hours now since we did it. It's set, seems to have set quite hard. Bit of a disaster, of course, and it got into the frets here. See, the idea when I taped it was I put tape on the sides to try and in case there was any overflow, but I didn't realize exactly how much overflow was needed so that it still filled in up this end, because the radius was so much. I don't know, I should have thought of it, I guess. So I ended up with a stack of overflow. Even here, this one here, I don't think it's actually, because it looks like it's shrunk a bit when it's dried, it actually looks like it's concave here. So I'll sand it back and see, but it might not have even completely filled it on this one. Also, this one here, I must have taped over it with the masking tape and didn't realise, and so it was completely covered with tape, peeled it off and it was under there. I forgot about it. So I'm not going to bother making up a new batch of resin just to fill that in. I'll either leave it or I'll just fill it in with a little bit of timber. Yeah, so that should only take just like a little bit of sanding now to get that flush. Okay, so I'll put some glue in there before that happens. Doesn't really matter if I get a bit of glue on the fretboard, it's going to be sanded again anyway. And I want to make sure this sticks pretty well. So yeah, I just cut a sliver off and the bandsaw, and then I rounded the end off on sandpaper. It's very easy to round it off and get the shape. That was the idea when I was doing them all. I originally was going to do it timber, but when the axe failed doing it timber, I decided, even though I knew these ones would be relatively easy to do with timber, I decided not to use the timber because I wanted them all to be the same. As it turns out, I'm going to end up with the timber one anyway because I missed it. I've got that little gap down the bottom here, which is what I was just talking about. It should have filled up with sawdust. That was where the router moved because of the way I was doing it. But yeah, the timber ones actually might look alright. I have sanded back about as much as I want on the fretboard. I don't want to get it much thinner, especially up this end. So it's just going to have to be how it is. Still a little bit of bleed out up here at the 3rd fret. 5th, 7th has got quite a bit still. So is the 9th. The axe that we did, the handle came out too wide down the bottom because I need to figure out a new way of keeping the router still. But I'm actually not that unhappy with the axe. There's a couple of white dots in there, which I think must have been bubbles in the resin. But we've got bleed out on the frets still, quite a few of them. I just cleaned all the gunk out of them and resawed them. And yeah, the resin in these fret things here didn't seem to really dry properly, so I don't know what the go with that was. So it was a bit gunky when I was resawing it, which is a bit of a concern. And I thought it might have been causing a bleed out as I was sanding, because it still wasn't 100% set. So I got rid of it and gave it another sand, and this is about as good as I'm going to get, I think. I'm starting to see the round tops on these ones now, which means that there's not as much bleed out, because they were looking square before. So that's come along good. The wooden one, of course, came out great right from the start. Obviously there's where I slid with the router, but otherwise I don't mind that stripe too much. It'll look better when it's actually got proper frets in there, I think. So that's where I'm at. It feels nice and smooth and all that. I may give it a coat of something, because it's such a light colour, it's going to get dirty, so I might give it a coat